Ever wonder why you keep sabotaging your own happiness? Like you're the villain in your own Netflix drama? Well, plot twist, you actually might be, but not on purpose. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of you that you'd rather pretend doesn't exist, but is secretly running the show. And guess what? Freud poked at it, Hillman embraced it, and Jung practically invited it in for tea. Today we're cracking open the psychological basement door and seeing what's crawling around down there. Bring a flashlight. We all like to think we know ourselves. You know your favorite coffee order, the way you react when you're stressed, what kind of people you click with, what makes you mad. You know what you like about yourself, your kindness, your strength, maybe even your sarcasm. But what about the parts you don't like? The envy, the pettiness, the fear of being abandoned. The parts that only come out when you're tired, triggered, or heartbroken. That's where the shadow lives. Carl Jung, one of the fathers of depth psychology, believed that the psyche isn't just what you're aware of. Most of it is unconscious. The shadow is the dark, hidden part of yourself made up of everything you've rejected, denied, or been shamed for. It starts early. Maybe someone told you, boys don't cry, so you buried your sensitivity. Or, stop being so dramatic, so you stopped expressing pain. Maybe you learned that to be loved, you had to be nice, quiet, useful. So the bold, messy, angry, sensual parts of you got locked away. But they didn't disappear. They just went underground, into the shadow. And now, those same parts show up in ways you don't expect. In the fight you had where you totally overreacted. In the self-doubt that creeps in even when life is going well. In the way you attract people who feel familiar but not safe. Jung didn't say this to shame us. He said it because he knew something deeper. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. It's not just Jung either. Freud explored the power of repressed desires, how the stuff we pretend isn't there ends up running the show. James Hillman took it further, saying that the shadow isn't something to get rid of, but to get curious about. He believed it holds keys to the soul, the depth, the imagination, the aliveness we've forgotten. Facing the shadow isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. It's not about fixing who you are. It's about finally meeting the parts of you that have been waiting in the dark, whispering, "See me, love me. I'm part of you too." And that's where the real healing begins. Facing the shadow, what Carl Jung, Freud, and Hillman want you to know. So, you're going through life doing the best you can. You're polite, you pay your bills, mostly. You say, "No worries," when you're actually seething inside, and you post quotes about self-love while secretly wondering if you're fundamentally unlovable. You tell yourself you're okay. You even believe it. Until you snap at someone you love. Or ghost a relationship the moment it gets too real. Or sabotage the opportunity you were praying for. And suddenly you're like, who even am I right now? That, my friend, is the shadow knocking. Jung would say, you didn't lose yourself. You just met the part of you that's been waiting in the basement. The part that's been curled up in the dark, holding all the messy truths you were told to hide. Let's break it down. Candle, the shadow isn't evil, it's exiled. We often hear darkness and think, bad, dangerous, wrong. But Jung, Freud, and Hillman weren't trying to shame the shadow. They were trying to rescue it. The shadow isn't evil. It's exiled. It's made of every piece of you that was once full of life, until the world said, that's too much, that's not enough, or that's not okay. A child who was too loud gets quiet. A teen who felt rejected becomes perfectionistic. A sensitive soul gets tough, cold, armored. And bit by bit, these parts go underground, not gone, just out of sight. But they don't die. They wait. They leak out in passive-aggressive comments, in addictions, in procrastination, in anxiety we can't explain. They show up as people who trigger us, mirrors we don't want to look into. Magnifying glass tilted left, Freud's mirror, the repressed always returns. Sigmund Freud, in all his cigar-smoking intensity, taught us that repression never truly works. Push something down long enough and it'll come back up wearing a trench coat and sunglasses trying to blend in, but still there. He called it the return of the repressed. Ever have a dream that makes no sense but leaves you feeling unsettled all day? Or find yourself furious at someone for doing the exact same thing you secretly do? Freud would say, "Ah yes, that's the unconscious mind at play." You may bury your anger. You may suppress your jealousy. You may pretend your wounds don't sting anymore. But your nervous system, your relationships, your creative blocks, they all remember. And sometimes healing starts when you realize that the thing you judge in others is a mirror reflecting you. Brain Jung's integration, making the shadow conscious. Carl Jung wasn't interested in being perfect. He was interested in being whole. He said the goal of life wasn't to eliminate the shadow, it was to integrate it. To bring what's hidden into the light. Not to fix yourself, but to know yourself. All of you. He believed that what we don't face, we project. Meaning, you might blame your partner for being emotionally distant, when deep down you're the one who's afraid of intimacy. You might see others as selfish, when what you're really feeling is rage at never having your needs met. And here's the catch. The shadow doesn't just hold anger, jealousy, or shame. It also holds your creativity, your authenticity, your wildness, your power, all the things you buried because they didn't feel safe. Jung called this process individuation, the sacred task of becoming who you truly are by embracing both the light and the dark. Firecracker Hillman's wisdom, there's gold in the darkness. James Hillman, poetic and mystical, took it even further. He said the shadow is not a problem, it's a portal, a guide, a necessary descent. In fact, he argued that our obsession with fixing ourselves is part of the problem. The goal isn't to become a sanitized, always smiling version of you. The goal is to become real. To sit with your sadness without needing to snap out of it. To let grief speak. To let anger burn, so it doesn't fester. Hillman saw the shadow as where the soul begins its work. He believed that imagination, myth, and dream are sacred languages the shadow speaks in. That depression, when approached with reverence, is not failure, it's initiation. So when you find yourself falling apart, what if it's not a breakdown? What if it's the beginning of your return? Real-life shadow moments that you'll totally recognize. Let's make this real. You see someone get praised for something you secretly want to do, but haven't dared, and suddenly you feel bitterness you don't understand. You say yes when you meant no and then resent the person who asked, because you're terrified of being rejected. You call yourself lazy when what you really are is exhausted from hiding your truth. That's your shadow. Not punishing you, just trying to be heard. Milky Way, why facing it changes everything. Facing your shadow isn't easy. It asks you to tell the truth, to slow down, to listen to the parts of you that you locked away. But something beautiful happens when you do. The things that used to own you lose their grip. The triggers start becoming teachers. The same patterns you kept repeating, you start to rewrite them. You find your voice, your power, your depth. You stop performing love and start receiving it. Because here's the secret. The shadow isn't the end of you. It's the beginning of your freedom. Okay, let's be honest. Facing your shadow sounds kind of dramatic, right? Like you need a candlelit basement, a leather journal, and maybe some Gregorian chants playing softly in the background. But truthfully, the shadow doesn't wait for perfect lighting. It shows up at brunch. It shows up when your ex texts, "Hey." It shows up when you see someone living your dream life, and suddenly you want to politely throw your phone into the ocean. The shadow is that moment when someone cuts you off in traffic and you momentarily become Genghis Khan. Or when your friend succeeds and instead of being happy for them, you smile and say, "So proud of you," while a tiny gremlin inside whispers, "Why not me?" We've all got gremlins. Somewhere jealousy, somewhere guilt, somewhere Gucci. Doesn't matter. The shadow is stylistically versatile. And let's be real, sometimes it's hilarious. You're out here meditating, journaling, sage cleansing your apartment, And 2 minutes later you're rage scrolling because someone from high school just got engaged in Bali and you're still figuring out what day it is. That's Shadow 101. It humbles you. It haunts you. But it also hands you the mirror. And once you learn to laugh with it, dance with it, talk to it, not only does it soften, it starts revealing the most creative, strange, and brilliant parts of you. Because underneath all that inner chaos might just be the real you, waiting to make an entrance, possibly wearing sweatpants, possibly holding deep, ancient wisdom, possibly both. So here's the truth most of us spend years trying to avoid. You are not broken. You are becoming. Everything you've hidden, suppressed, denied, or tried to outrun, your fear, your rage, your shame, your longing, was never meant to be erased. It was meant to be understood, integrated. Carl Jung, Freud, and Hillman didn't want us to defeat the shadow. They wanted us to meet it like an old friend with stories to tell. Because when you finally turn toward the darkness, you realize it was never there to destroy you. It was the part of you that held the key to your wholeness all along. So the next time something triggers you or you catch yourself spiraling into old patterns, pause. Breathe. Ask gently, what part of me is asking to be seen right now? Because maybe the darkness isn't something to fight. Maybe it's a doorway. And maybe, just maybe, your shadow is the path home. If this video helped you shine a light into your psychological dungeon, give it a like. Drop a comment below. What's one shadow trait you're beginning to recognize in yourself? And don't forget to subscribe, because we're just getting started on this inner journey. More shadow work, more soul talk, and more laughs, all coming your way. Your support keeps this channel going, and your inner work keeps your soul growing.